Welcome back to Under Baobab Skies. Tonight, we journey into the heart of Hausa land, into a world woven from thread, skill, and history. We're delving into the lives of the textile weavers, whose nimble fingers and patient eyes created not just cloth, but the very wealth and identity of ancient kingdoms. Let us begin by imagining the sun dipping low over the northern savannah, casting a golden glow upon dust and clay rooftops. Picture small workshop courtyards where the rhythmic clack-clack of looms rises like a steady, unhurried heartbeat. The air is thick with the scent of raw cotton, mingling with smoke from evening fires, while the faint echo of drums from city markets drifts on the breeze. This is the land of the Hausa, a crossroads of trade, artistry, and the quiet genius of those who labored in threads. Here, a weaver's world is both physical and spiritual. Threads are never just cotton or silk. They are stories, symbols, prayers, and declarations of status. Each pattern carries a memory, a family's lineage, a city's prosperity, the vibrant colors of sacred festivals. The famous Kano blue isn't just a dye. It's a legacy, a testament to the deep indigo pits that have colored cloth for centuries. Behind this intricate beauty, however, the life of a weaver is one of immense dedication. It means long hours hunched over the loom, eyes straining in the dim light, and a relentless focus that demands an endurance few outsiders can truly comprehend. Tonight, we will walk alongside these artisans. We will feel the weight of their work, the immense pride in their craft, and uncover the secrets held within every strand of indigo blue. As the loom's rhythm echoes through the warm evening air, let's take a moment. Imagine a fire crackling softly nearby, its light dancing on the focused faces of the weavers. The stories of these hands, weathered and wise, will carry us gently, thread by thread, into a deeper understanding of skill, culture, and human patience. As the sky darkens and the first stars emerge like scattered beads across black velvet, listen closely. You can almost hear the quiet whispers of history, of trades passed from father to son, of markets bustling with cloth of every conceivable hue, and of the invisible hands that shaped both the wealth of empires and the identity of a people. These threads are connectors, binding generations, tying people to their land, and weaving endurance and patience into the very fabric of their culture. The history of Hausa weaving is as rich and complex as the patterns they create. For centuries, cities like Kano were epicenters of a vast trade network that stretched across the Sahara. Hausa textiles were more than just local crafts. They were a currency, a form of tribute, and a symbol of power recognized far and wide. The riga, a grand, flowing robe, was not merely clothing but a statement of nobility and influence. Its value determined by the quality of the thread, the complexity of the weave, and the intricacy of its embroidery. The weavers were not just artisans. They were essential pillars of the economy. Their skill determined the fortune of merchants and the prestige of kings. In every thread, you can trace the roots of ancient caravans, the rise and fall of dynasties, and the enduring spirit of a people whose identity is literally woven into their daily lives. This tradition continues today, a living link to that powerful past. While modern methods have been introduced, many weavers still prefer the old ways. Using the same ground-level looms their ancestors did, it is a slow, meditative process. The weaver sits on the ground, feet working the pedals, hands flying to pass the shuttle back and forth. It's a dance of coordination, a symphony of movement that has been perfected over countless generations. They are not just making cloth, they are preserving a heritage. Each piece is a testament to the idea that some things of value cannot be rushed. In a world obsessed with speed and mass production, the Hausa weaver reminds us of the profound beauty found in patience and meticulous craftsmanship. And so, we enter this world slowly, like a gentle caravan journeying across the night. Let your mind settle into the rhythm of the looms, allowing your heartbeat to synchronize with the graceful movement of hands over cotton and silk. This evening, you are more than a viewer. You are a witness to an ancient craft, a traveler beneath the African stars, and a listener to stories carried on threads of indigo, crimson, and gold. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found beauty and meaning in the stories of these artisans, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more tales from this incredible continent. Your support helps us continue to share these important histories. We'll see you next time. You are now under Baobab skies. Let the story begin. Before the sun even thinks about rising, the day has already begun for a Hausa weaver. Imagine opening your eyes, not to an alarm clock, but to the soft, flickering glow of lanterns and the quiet rustle of other artisans stirring in the compound. Your fingers, even in sleep, seem to remember the familiar feel of your tools, the smooth wooden shuttle, the heddle, the countless threads of the warp stretched tight across your loom. The air around you is warm and still, carrying the earthy scents of raw cotton and the subtle, tangy aroma of natural dyes. This is not just a workshop, it's a world, and the first light of dawn is its call to prayer, a prayer of creation. The hours that follow unfold in a disciplined, almost meditative silence. The only sounds are the rhythmic clack-clack-clack of wooden shuttles flying back and forth, and the occasional soft whisper between weavers. Your body is bent over the loom, a position you'll hold for most of the day. A dull ache begins to settle in your back, and your eyes strain to follow the intricate pattern taking shape beneath your fingers. There are no written guides here, no charts to follow. The patterns are held in your memory, passed down through generations. Every single symbol, every stripe must be perfectly placed. One small mistake, one misaligned thread, and the value of the cloth diminishes. In this world, mistakes are not easily undone. Each thread is a testament to your skill, your patience, and your unwavering care. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, the quiet courtyard heats up. Sweat beads on your forehead, but the rhythm of the loom is unbroken, a steady heartbeat of production. An elder might call out a piece of advice, her voice raspy but sure. Or a child might sit beside their mother, their small hands fumbling as they learn the craft that will one day secure their future. Weavers are not just colleagues. They form tight-knit communities. Their shared laughter, their quiet sighs, their murmured prayers all weave together into a gentle, human symphony. Every piece of cloth created here is both a product of intense labor and a living legacy. But let's be clear. This work is relentless. The constant focus leads to eye strain and headaches. The repetitive motions cause muscles in your shoulders and back to tighten into knots. The faint, sweet smell of indigo dye, so beautiful in the finished cloth, stains your fingertips a deep, persistent blue. And then there are the social expectations, a weight just as heavy as the physical toil. You have to meet your quotas. You have to produce flawless work. You have to uphold your family's reputation. Because cloth was more than just fabric, it was wealth. And in the bustling Hausa cities, wealth wasn't just about coins. It was about respect, about securing good marriage alliances, about earning honor within your community. Let's just pause here for a moment. Try to feel that slow, deliberate movement of the shuttle passing from hand to hand. Hear the faint crackle of embers from the cooking fires nearby. Imagine the quiet intensity, The focus that stretches across your body and mind like a thread pulled taut on the loom. This is the very essence of Hausa weaving. An incredible fusion of endurance, precision, and a deep, unwavering devotion to the craft. The patterns you are weaving are not just for decoration, they are a language. They tell stories. Each stripe, each triangle, each diamond encodes a specific meaning. It could be your lineage, your social status, or even a form of spiritual protection. As a weaver, you are both an artisan and a custodian of culture, translating collective memory into a tangible, beautiful form. Some patterns signal that a young woman is eligible for marriage. Others are a clear display of wealth or trade connections that stretch across the vast Sahara. One misaligned line could confuse a potential buyer or, even worse, diminish the standing of your entire family. In this craft, mindfulness and concentration aren't just good habits. They are absolutely essential for survival and success. The labor isn't only physical, there's a profound emotional weight to this work. There's the immense pride you feel in your skill, the quiet joy of creating something truly beautiful from simple threads. But there's also the constant worry over your reputation and the pressure to be perfect. Fatigue is a constant companion, always hovering nearby. Long days blend into long nights, punctuated only by short breaks for a simple meal of millet porridge or a sip of cool water from a clay pot. Laughter is often brief, and your mind is always calculating, always thinking ahead to the next sequence of movements, the next row of the pattern. A weaver's life is an endless meditation on diligence and detail. Now, let's rest here for a moment, under the vast, star-filled sky. Imagine the gentle, rhythmic sound of the looms continuing into the evening, almost like a lullaby. The soft chatter of your fellow artisans sounds like a distant, flowing river. The fabric on your loom grows, thread by precious thread, as if the very walls of the compound are whispering encouragement. In this way, you, the weaver, become part of a timeless continuum. Each pattern you create becomes a voice in the long, rich story of Hausa culture. The pressures of survival extend far beyond the walls of your workshop. The bustling markets demand a constant supply of new cloth. Powerful merchants and wealthy patrons expect nothing less than excellence. Social hierarchies are strict and unforgiving. The very best, most intricate cloth is reserved for kings, nobles, and the wealthiest traders. If you are a lowly weaver or a young apprentice, you must labor quietly in the background, earning recognition slowly, often only after years of dedicated apprenticeship. Every single day is a delicate negotiation between your skill, your physical endurance, and the unforgiving expectations of your community. As night finally descends, the courtyard grows quiet. You finally allow yourself to stretch, your body aching, your eyes weary but filled with a quiet pride. In the soft lantern light, the threads of color in your cloth seem to shimmer, the patterns you've so carefully etched standing out in the dimness. Each completed section of cloth, no matter how small, feels like a triumph. It's a testament to your patience, your skill, your resilience. Though this labor is often unseen by outsiders, it is the very engine that fuels kingdoms, connects merchants across deserts, and preserves centuries of culture in its vibrant threads. Let's pause one last time, breathe in the soft night air, and listen to the distant hum of city life beyond the walls. Feel that calm satisfaction of a day's work completed with honor and dedication. The weaver lays her hands down to rest, but the stories she has woven remain in the threads, in the patterns, and in the quiet, enduring memory of the loom. The sun rises slowly over the thatched rooftops of Kano, Zaria, and Cartagena, its golden light spilling into the dusty courtyards where the looms stand waiting. The air is still cool, but it carries a promise of the heat to come, the kind that makes cotton stick to your skin and turns every single thread into a test of patience. Here, in these ancient cities, the weavers begin their day in a quiet, practiced rhythm. Long before the first shuttle strikes the warp, there's a small ritual that unfolds. Someone sprinkles water on the earth, a simple act to keep the dust from rising and settling on the precious threads. Another man might whisper a short prayer, a quiet plea for steady hands and strong eyes to guide him through the long day. Often, the eldest in the compound will hum a low, resonant tuna melody that is half blessing, half habit. It's a gentle reminder that this work, when done with humility and focus, is its own form of worship. This isn't just a job. It's a calling woven into the very fabric of their lives. Weaving, in this part of the world, is never a solitary act. Each courtyard is a miniature world, a bustling community of men, boys, and sometimes women, all bound together by the same steady, hypnotic music of thread and shuttle. The clatter and hum of the looms fill the air, a sound as constant and familiar as the rustle of dry leaves in the Harmattan wind. It's a pulse that beats through the narrow streets, the very heartbeat of the community. Over this rhythmic sound, no one shouts. Words are saved for the pauses, for the moments when the shuttle rests and tired fingers need a break. It's in these quiet interludes that laughter erupts, breaking through the focused silence. It's when a story is shared, a joke is told, and the bonds of brotherhood are reaffirmed. These men are more than just colleagues. They are a family, united by a shared craft and a shared existence. As the sun climbs to its highest point, the relentless work slows. The heat becomes a formidable opponent, and the weavers know when to yield. Threads are carefully tied off, and the looms are covered with protective cloths. The men gather in a shaded corner of the courtyard, seeking refuge from the glare. Here they share their midday meal, simple, nourishing food like millet bread, groundnuts, and if a customer has paid well that week, perhaps a rich goat stew. During this break, the conversation rarely turns to the cloth itself. Instead, they talk about life. They share news about whose son has just begun his apprenticeship, whose wife has gone to the market, or which dye merchant might have tried to cheat a fellow weaver. These conversations are the threads that bind their social fabric. There's a rhythm to these bonds, to one built not on written contracts or formal rules, but on a deep, unspoken trust. It's a world where you lend your neighbor a spool of thread, knowing he will return the favor when he can. It's where you patiently teach a young apprentice how to fix a broken heddle, understanding that someday, when your own eyes begin to fail, he will be the one to help you thread the finest, most delicate strings. This is a community sustained by mutual respect and a shared understanding that their strength lies in their unity. The path of an apprentice is its own quiet, unhurried journey. A boy, perhaps only 10 years old, might arrive at a master weaver-esque compound with nothing more than a sleeping mat and a small bundle of clothes. His journey doesn't begin at the loom. For months, his duties are simple: sweeping the floor, fetching water, and, most importantly, watching. He observes the older men's hands as they fly across the threads, his young mind absorbing every movement, every nuance. He learns the language of the loom not through instruction, but through immersion. When he is finally allowed to touch it, his tasks are small and menial: tying the long warp threads, straightening the reeds, ensuring everything is perfectly aligned for the master. Progress is measured not in weeks or months, but in seasons. It's a slow, deliberate process that shapes not only his skill, but his character. By the time he reaches 16, the transformation is complete. His fingers move with an instinctual grace, His feet know the precise rhythm of the treadles without conscious thought, and his ears have become so attuned to the sounds of the loom that he can hear a single thread snap even before the break is visible. To an outsider, the work might seem monotonous, the same repetitive motions day in and day out. But for the weavers, it is a form of active meditation, a discipline that cultivates immense patience and a deep, quiet pride. As dusk begins to settle, the looms fall silent one by one. The air cools and the day's work is done. The men sit with their backs against the smooth, sun-baked mud walls, watching the smoke from nearby cooking fires curl lazily into the evening sky. The sky itself transforms, deepening into a rich indigo, the very same shade of blue that fills their dye vats and stains their fingertips. There's a running joke among them that even when they die, they will be buried with blue palms. An eternal testament to a life spent turning simple thread into breathtaking beauty. This mark on their hands is not a stain of labor, but a badge of honor. The brotherhood of weavers isn't loud or boastful. It's a connection forged in the quiet moments, in shared glances across the courtyard. In the seamless way, one man passes the shuttle to another without a word, in the collective bone deep. Exhaustion felt after 12 hours of sitting cross-legged before the loom. These men don't chase fame or fortune in the modern sense. Their reward isn't wealth, but mastery. Their pride comes from knowing that somewhere in the world, a bride will walk towards her new life adorned in cloth they created. Or a respected chief will wrap himself in fabric that bears their hidden signature mark. Their legacy is woven into the most important moments of people's lives. It's a legacy of beauty, tradition, and unparalleled skill. And so, as the city sleeps under a blanket of stars, the looms wait patiently in the silent courtyards. They stand ready, holding the promise of a new day. Because at dawn, the work will begin again. And with it, the steady, rhythmic heartbeat of a brotherhood that has stretched across countless generations and will continue, thread by thread, for generations to come. In the Hausa world, beauty was never effortless. It was a burden, a heavy weight carried on bent backs and seen through strained, tired eyes. It was an unspoken promise between the craftsman and his creation. Every single thread pulled across the loom was a line of faith, a belief that endless patience would one day bloom into praise, that the quiet, throbbing pain in the hands would be forgotten when the finished cloth finally shone under the bright market sun. By midday, the workshop was a furnace. The thick mud walls, meant to keep out the heat, now held it captive, and the air shimmered with dust and a blizzard of cotton fibers. Every weaver in that room knew this kind of beauty. The kind fit for a chief's robe didn't come cheap. It was a battle. You had to fight with the loom, your fingers working to untangle snarled warp threads, your body constantly adjusting to tame the uneven tension. And long after the sun had set, you had to endure the relentless hum of mosquitoes, their bites another small sacrifice for the craft. A true master weaver could orchestrate up to 20,000 individual threads into a single, magnificent piece of cloth. Each line had to be perfectly balanced, a testament to geometric precision learned over a lifetime. The eyes always suffered first. They would burn, water, and blur until the patterns swam before them. But to stop meant losing your rhythm, and in weaving, rhythm was everything. It was the heartbeat of the cloth. Many old weavers could tell you stories of men who went blind by the time they were 40, their vision stolen by the very beauty they brought into the world. Yet no one ever complained. To be a blind weaver was seen as an honor. It was a sign that you had seen more beauty in your lifetime than most people could ever imagine. The most prized fabrics, the ones destined for royalty and ceremony like Oniriga and the Tufafi na Sakadi, demanded more than just skill. They demanded courage. Complex patterns like Sani, Gideon, Gado, and Qualia were filled with secret codes. Motifs that whispered of lineage, of power, or held deep spiritual meaning. The weaver carried this knowledge just as a griot carried history in his songs. Each design had its own taboos, its own rules. Certain colors could never be mixed without getting permission from the elders, and some powerful motifs could only ever be woven for nobility. There's an old story of a young, ambitious weaver from Zaria who dared to copy a royal pattern for a wealthy merchant's robe. He was talented, no doubt, but he was arrogant. When the chief's men saw the cloth shining in the market, they knew instantly what he had done. They seized the boy and, in a public display, burned the beautiful cloth to ash. The elder weavers didn't defend him. They just shook their heads and said he tried to wear a name that was not his. In the world of weaving, just as in life, beauty had rules, and those who broke them paid the price in shame. And still, the people demanded beauty. At the great, sprawling markets of Kano and Kachina, women would examine bolts of cloth with sharp, discerning eyes. They'd run their fingers over the weave, feeling for tightness, for uniformity, for the very breath of the fabric. A perfect piece of cloth, they said, should hum when you fold it, a soft, whispering sound like the wind rustling through millet fields at harvest time. The customers saw elegance, vibrant color, and the prestige the cloth would bring them. But the weavers, they saw the sleepless nights, the aching joints, and the drops of sweat woven into every single inch. In truth, weaving was a constant dialogue between spirit and survival. The fabric had to please not only the buyer, but also the ancestors. A weaver who ignored the proper rituals, who failed to offer kola nuts before starting a new, important design, or who didn't give his loom a period of rest after a death in the family, was risking misfortune. Some believed the threads themselves would rebel, snapping more often than usual, tangling into impossible knots. Others claimed the finished cloth would come out dull and lifeless, as if its spirit had fled. And so, every finished piece was far more than just a product to be sold. It was a prayer made visible. It was a prayer for good trade, a prayer for the health of one's family, a prayer for peace and harmony in the household. The act of weaving itself became a quiet sermon. The loom was the pulpit, and the shuttle, flying back and forth, was a psalm sung in silence. This burden of the beautiful also showed in the choices the weavers had to make in their own lives. Many didn't marry young because their craft consumed their youth entirely. They couldn't afford bride prices or land until their reputation was firmly established. The long, solitary hours spent at the loom left little time for anything else. But when they finally earned the right to be called Maera Reguna Master of Cloth, they stood tall in their communities. In the bustling Hausa towns, few men could claim to possess such profound patience, such unwavering dedication. By evening, when the last threads were finally tied and the looms fell silent, the courtyard felt lighter, as if all the beauty that had been wrestled with throughout the day had finally been set free, released into the cool night air. The weavers would wash their hands in basins of cool water, their palms stained a deep, rich blue, their fingernails permanently rimmed with indigo dye. That color, deep, dark, and eternal, became their signature, their undeniable badge of honor. It was a mark of their sacrifice and their skill. Even now, centuries later, the descendants of those master craftsmen still speak of the *Dikonshi*, a word that embodies the totality of skill, humility, and spiritual respect that defined a true weaver. It was never enough just to create something beautiful. You had to suffer for it. You had to respect its power, and ultimately you had to be able to let it go. And that, in the end, was the true burden of the beautiful. The quiet knowledge that the cloth you created might outlive you, that its elegance would hang on royal shoulders or be passed down through generations long after your own name had faded from memory, forgotten like a whisper in the wind. The hands that created it would turn to dust, but the beauty they wove would endure. In the ancient lands of the Hausa, long before ink ever touched paper, a profound language was being spoken. But it wasn't a language of the tongue. It was a language of the eye, of the hand, of the heart. In Hausa land, pattern was never just decoration, it was grammar. Every stripe, every zigzag, every diamond that adorned their textiles spoke in a tongue older than any written word. The loom was their script, the weaver a scribe, and each intricately crafted cloth was a complete sentence. A story telling you exactly who a person was, where they came from, and the dreams, sorrows, and histories they carried inside. Imagine the morning light, soft and golden, falling across narrow bands of fabric stretched taut between wooden posts. From a distance, they might have looked like rivers of color winding their way through the dusty earth. But as you draw closer, you begin to see the incredible discipline of the lines, the sharpness of the contrast between one color and the next, the measured rhythm that feels almost mathematical in its precision. Yet, beneath that perfect order lived pure emotion. A zigzag wasn't just a jagged line. It told of long journeys, of mountains climbed and valleys crossed. A diamond wasn't just a shape. It marked union, two halves meeting, sometimes breaking apart, but always rejoining, symbolizing relationships, community, and the cycles of life itself. This visual language was deeply ingrained in the social fabric. Some patterns were a declaration of lineage, a family crest worn for all to see. In the great city of Kano, a weaver with a trained eye could recognize a man's family simply by the way his robe caught the sun. A series of thin black lines crossing a field of pale blue might signal a descent from a long line of prosperous traders who traversed the Sahara. Bold red chevrons, on the other hand, whispered of a warrior ancestry, of courage and strength passed down through generations. These patterns were more than just beautiful designs. They were identity cards, woven with threads of history and heritage. The language of the loom also marked the great milestones of life. A newlywed woman might wear a cloth patterned with twin diamonds, a powerful wish for fertility, balance, and a harmonious partnership. The two halves of the diamond represented the two individuals coming together to form a new, stronger whole. Conversely, a widow's shawl would carry subdued, somber stripes, her own beauty and vibrancy dimmed by duty and respect for the one she had lost. Each thread was a testament to her grief, a quiet, public expression of her inner world. The cloth became a second skin, mirroring the state of the soul within. The weavers themselves, the custodians of this sacred language, held their knowledge close. It wasn't taught in formal schools or written down in books. It was passed on through quiet apprenticeship, from master to student, from one generation to the next. They spoke of the lay asterisk, the sacred liner concept that held meaning far beyond what was merely visible. They taught that the line was the foundational element, the very breath of the design. Children learning the craft were taught to see pattern not just with their eyes, but with their hearts. The line must breathe, their masters would say. If it cannot breathe, it cannot speak. A flat, lifeless line was a failed word, a story left untold. The weaver had to imbue the thread with spirit, with intention, for the cloth to truly communicate. This world of weaving was a beautiful dance of complementary roles between men and women. It was the men who wove the narrow strips, these long, continuous bands of fabric, some no wider than a hand. Their looms were low to the ground, crouching near the dust, their shuttles dancing back and forth with incredible speed and precision. They were creating the individual words, the phrases of this textile language. It was a focused, almost meditative process, producing yard after yard of these vibrant strips. Then, these strips would be passed to the women. Their role was to stitch these individual pieces together, transforming them into the wider cloths, the magnificent robes, the flowing shawls, the blankets that would swaddle a newborn. The women were the editors, the storytellers, who assembled the words into a grander narrative. While the men's looms were close to the earth, the women's looms often stood upright, powerful, and open to the sky. This difference wasn't about hierarchy, it was about harmony. It represented two halves of one creative world, one grounded and continuous, the other expansive and unifying. The men's cloths clothed the body, providing protection and identity in the everyday world. The women's cloths, assembled with such care, wrapped the spirit. They were present at births, celebrating new life. They adorned couples at weddings, blessing their union. And they shrouded the departed at burials, offering comfort and dignity in the final journey. Together, the work of men and women formed the complete language of a people who believed that beauty, meaning, and story must surround life from its very beginning to its very end. Let's just pause here for a moment. Imagine us sitting under a vast, star-filled sky, the air cool and still. The fire crackles softly beside us, casting a warm glow. In the quiet, you can almost hear the hum of those ancient threads, speaking their silent, powerful language across the ages. A language of connection, of identity, and of a beauty so profound it needed no words. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our journey into the heart of Hausa craftsmanship. Today, we're diving deep into the world of color. A world where every shade tells a story and every dye pot holds a legacy. This isn't just about aesthetics, it's about memory made visible. In Hausa weaving, color was never just for show. It was a language, a chronicle of life itself. Each shade carried its own biography, its own distinct voice. Imagine pure, brilliant white. It spoke of purity, peace, and the promise of renewal. Think of vibrant red, drawn from the very earth. It pulsed with the energy of life, the fire of courage, and the power of transformation. And then there's blue, the deep, endless blue of indigo. This was the color of wisdom and endurance, the color of the sky that has witnessed all things, from the grandest triumphs to the quietest moments. Let's step into the dyeing courtyards, the vibrant centers of this tradition. Can you imagine the scene? Women, their arms strong and steady, are gathered around bubbling pots. The air is thick with the earthy, smoky scent of roots, bark, and fermenting leaves. This is where the magic happens. This is where the earth gives up its secrets. Take indigo, for example. The leaves would be soaked in large clay pits, left to ferment until they released a deep, mesmerizing hue so rich it seemed to swallow the light. It wasn't a quick process. It was a patient collaboration with nature. The brilliant red ochre wasn't bought from a store. It was ground from stone, its pigments unlocked and deepened with nourishing shea oil, and the sunny, hopeful yellows. They were coaxed from the bark of certain trees and the petals of specific flowers, patient gifts from the land. Every color had a source, a story that began long before it ever touched a thread of cotton. Behind every one of these vibrant hues was a keeper. These were the women who guarded the secret recipes. Their hands forever stained by their trade, a permanent testament to their skill and dedication. To an outsider, the dyeing process might look like simple chemistry, a bit of this, a bit of that, boiled in water. But to these women, it was inheritance. It was a sacred trust passed down from mother to daughter, from grandmother to grandchild. The knowledge wasn't just in their heads. It was in their hands, in their intuition. The preparation of indigo, in particular, was a ritual steeped in spiritual significance. A dyer would whisper blessings into the vat before dipping the cloth. Her words a quiet prayer for a perfect, even color. When the cloth emerged from the depths, a beautiful, uniform blue, she would offer thanks to the ancestors who guided her hands. If a dye refused to take, if the color came out patchy or weak, it wasn't seen as a mere failure of skill. It was a sign of spiritual imbalance, a reminder that this work was a delicate dance between the physical and the unseen world. You had to be in harmony with the process, with the materials, and with the spirits of the craft. The merchants who traveled the vast trade routes of West Africa knew this language of color intimately. They understood that color spoke faster and more powerfully than any words. They would place their orders with weavers, not just by pattern, but by specific shades, each tailored for distant markets and different cultures. Lighter, sky-like blues were favored by the Tuareg, the nomadic masters of the desert, their robes a mirror of the endless sky. Deep, rich reds were sought after by savanna chiefs, the color a symbol of their power, authority, and connection to the land. And cloths of profound black, sharply edged in pure white, were worn by scholars of the Quran, representing wisdom and spiritual clarity. Through this bustling trade, color became a bridge. It connected different faiths, different peoples, and different tongues. A single, beautifully woven robe could carry the soil of many lands in its fibers. The red ochre might be from a hillside hundreds of miles away, the indigo from a valley in a neighboring kingdom, and the cotton from fields tended by another community altogether. Each piece of cloth was a testament to this interconnected world, a map of relationships and exchange woven together. It was a wearable story of connection, a silent ambassador traveling across vast distances. And amidst all this serious work, this commerce and culture, there was life. Children played near the vats, their laughter echoing through the courtyards. They'd watch, mesmerized, as their mother's arms disappeared into the swirling, cloudy depths of the blue dye, only to re-emerge stained but triumphant. They didn't yet understand the full weight of what they were witnessing. They didn't know that those arms were stirring not just dye, but the very foundations of their family's fortune and their community's cultural identity. The rise and fall of their family's well-being was often tied directly to the tone of the dye, to the skill and reputation of the women who created it. For them, it was just the backdrop of their childhood, but they were absorbing it, all the smells, the sounds, the rhythms of the work. They were learning the language of color without even realizing it, preparing to one day become the keepers of the flame themselves. Then came the final, beautiful stage. Once dyed, the cloths were hung up to dry under the vast African sun. Rows and rows of them, fluttering gently in the breeze. In the sunlight, they seemed to shimmer and come alive, no longer just pieces of fabric, but living, breathing things. Each one pulsed with color, saturated with story, just waiting for the right person to wear it and continue its journey. Each cloth was a finished poem, a tangible piece of history ready to be read. Let's just pause here for a moment. Take a deep breath. Imagine you're standing in that courtyard. The air smells of wet indigo and the gentle smoke of a firewood kiln. In the quiet distance, you can hear a dye song rising, a soft, rhythmic chant that is part work song, part prayer. It's a sound that has filled these spaces for centuries. This is more than a craft. It's a living, breathing tradition, a symphony of color, work, and spirit. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the vibrant tapestry of human culture. Today, we're diving deep into a world where stories aren't just told with words, but woven with thread, color, and tradition. We're exploring the profound significance of cloth among the Hausa people of West Africa, where fabric is so much more than something you wear. It's a living document, a silent language, and a vessel for memory and blessings. To the Hausa, cloth was not simply worn, it was witnessed. It was an active participant in the most pivotal moments of life. Imagine a wedding. A bride, radiant and hopeful, is carefully wrapped in layers of patterned fabric. This isn't just any beautiful textile. Each design, each color, tells a story. One pattern might narrate her family's history, a lineage of strength and resilience woven into the very threads. Another might represent her husband's hopes for their future together, prosperity, children, a life of harmony. As she moves, the cloth shimmers, catching the light and the eyes of everyone present. It's a spectacle of love and legacy. The women of her community, her mother's aunts and grandmothers, would gather around as they help adjust the folds and layers. Each touch is intentional. Through their fingertips, they add a blessing, an unspoken prayer for her happiness and well-being. The cloth becomes a repository of good wishes, a shield of love she carries with her into her new life. Every rustle of the fabric is an echo of their voices and their hopes for her. But just as cloth celebrates life, it also honors its end. At funerals, the mood shifts, and so does the fabric. Mourners would don woven bands of quiet, somber colors. Imagine a deep indigo blue, the color of the night sky, mixed with a soft, solemn gray, like the morning mist. Here, life is folded into grief. These fabrics weren't meant to be flashy or ostentatious. Their purpose was one of comfort and guidance. There was a profound belief that these textiles could comfort the soul of the departed. The soft, familiar feel of the woven material was thought to be a gentle guide, a comforting hand leading the spirit on its journey toward the ancestors. The colors, the patterns, they were a final, respectful farewell, a way for the community to collectively say, "We are with you, even as you leave us." The cloth connected the world of the living to the realm of the spirits, acting as a bridge built of shared sorrow and enduring respect. It was a testament to the idea that even in death, no one is ever truly alone. The community wraps you in their memory, just as they wrap themselves in cloth. Beyond these major life events, cloth played a crucial role in daily protection and spiritual belief. Some cloths were created specifically as amulets, small but powerful pieces of fabric imbued with protective energy. Think of tiny, meticulously crafted strips of cloth dyed in specific patterns that were known to ward off harm. These weren't just decorative elements, they were shields. These protective strips would be carefully sewn into the seams of a child's clothing, a hidden guardian watching over them as they played. A warrior preparing for a journey or a battle might have one tied securely around his wrist, a tangible reminder of the spiritual protection of his people. The belief behind this was simple, yet incredibly profound. A pattern that was remembered and honored by the ancestors held the power to shield the living. It was a direct line to the strength and wisdom of those who came before. A piece of heritage worn as armor against the uncertainties of the world. This brings us to one of the most incredible aspects of this tradition, the concept of pattern memory. Every master weaver was a living library. They possessed a mental map of hundreds, if not thousands, of intricate designs, held entirely in their mind. There were no written guides, No sketched out plans, no pattern books to consult. It was a tradition passed down through observation, practice, and an almost sacred level of memorization. The weaver's hands just knew. They remembered the sequence, the color changes, the complex interplay of threads. The rhythmic clatter of the shuttle against the loom wasn't just noise. It was a form of communication. It was the sound of memory being transformed into matter. The rhythm itself told the weaver what the next step was, guiding the hands through a dance they had performed countless times. This level of mastery is almost unimaginable in our modern, screen-filled world. It was a skill honed over a lifetime, a deep, intuitive connection between mind, body, and craft. Because this knowledge was stored in the mind of the master, its preservation was incredibly fragile. When a master weaver passed away, the community mourned a profound loss. His apprentice would weep not only for the man, the mentor, the elder they had lost, but also for the patterns that would vanish with him. Each master had their own unique variations, their own secret combinations of design and color. With their passing, a part of the collective cultural library was lost forever. It highlights the immense responsibility these artisans carried. They were not just weavers. They were the guardians of their people's visual language, the keepers of stories that could be told in no other way. The creation of these textiles was not a solitary pursuit hidden away in a workshop. It was a source of immense communal pride. When a weaver finally cut a perfect, magnificent cloth from the loom, it was an event. Neighbors would gather, drawn by the news of a masterpiece completed. They would come to admire the flawless work, to run their hands over the intricate patterns and feel the quality of the weave. It was a celebration of skill, dedication, and artistry. The women, often connoisseurs of fabric themselves, would sing praise songs, their voices rising in tribute to the weaver's talent. The men would nod in quiet, deep respect, acknowledging the discipline and strength required for such an achievement. This wasn't about envy or competition. It was a shared joy. The beauty of the cloth belonged to everyone, because its journey was just beginning. It was a reflection of the entire community's values and aesthetic sensibilities. This cloth would soon travel, carrying the spirit of its home with it. It might go to a bustling market in a nearby city, to a vibrant festival celebrating a harvest or a holy day, or even to distant lands across the desert. Its maker's name would likely be forgotten over time, lost in the transactions and travels. But his art, the story he wove into every thread, would be remembered. The cloth itself became his legacy, a silent ambassador for the skill and soul of his people. It was a way for a small community to speak to the wider world, to share a piece of their identity through pure, undeniable beauty. And even now, if you walk through the vibrant, chaotic, and wonderful markets of ancient Hausa cities like Kano or Dora, you can still find echoes of these ancient patterns. The world has changed, of course. Modern weavers often use synthetic dyes that offer a brilliant, different palette of colors. They have new tools and faster, more mechanized looms that have changed the pace of production. The hum of a modern workshop is different from the rhythmic clack of a traditional hand loom. Yet, despite all these changes, the old language endures. The foundational symbols, the grammar of the weave, are still there. A diamond shape, woven into a modern fabric, still carries the echo of its ancient meaning: union, marriage, coming together. A single, strong line running through a pattern still speaks of a journey, a path, a life's direction. These symbols connect the present to a deep and storied past. The materials may be new, but the soul of the cloth, the stories it tells, remains timeless. It's a beautiful testament to the resilience of culture, proving that while methods may evolve, the heart of a tradition can beat on for centuries. Let's just pause here for a moment and reflect on what this all means. Imagine the feeling of a hand-woven cloth, the weight of it, the texture. Imagine the soft desert wind moving through stacks of folded fabric in a marketplace, each one a silent library of stories. It's a powerful reminder that history isn't only found in books or monumental architecture. Stories are not always told in words. Sometimes they live and breathe in the intricate dance of weave and color, waiting for a knowing eye to read them and a respectful hand to feel their truth. Welcome back. As we journey deeper into the heart of West Africa, we leave the familiar paths behind and step into a world woven from legend, skill, and a color that holds the sky captive. Imagine yourself in the heart of Hausa land, a place where the sun is so fierce it feels like it could turn the very dust to fire. Here, hidden in plain sight, was a secret far older than the first iron tools, a secret born from the simplest of things: leaves, clay, and an incredible amount of patience. This was the secret of indigo. The people called it Maishuni *, the dye that swallowed the sky. Think about that description for a moment. It wasn't just a color, it was an experience. It was the deep, velvety blue of dusk caught between your palms. It was a blue that didn't shout for attention, but hummed a low, eternal, and forgiving tune. To wrap yourself in cloth dyed with Maishuni * was to walk cloaked in twilight itself, carrying the mystery of the evening with you. Long before the name Kano became synonymous with a powerful empire, this land was a sprawling network of dyeing wells, a testament to a tradition that was the very foundation of its future wealth. From the smallest, most remote villages to the vibrant, bustling market towns that dotted the landscape, a unique feature marked the ground pits. These weren't just holes in the earth. They were carefully constructed vessels. They were dug round and wide, then painstakingly lined with a special mixture of clay and ash, creating a waterproof, almost living container. Into these pits, the women, the guardians of this ancient craft, poured a potent mixture. It started with fermented leaves from the indigo plant, which were then combined with lime and a collection of secret powders. Their recipes whispered from mother to daughter through countless generations. Over time, as batch after batch was created, the pits themselves darkened, absorbing the color and the history, seemingly becoming alive with their own spirit. Travelers who witnessed this process were often in awe. They spoke of the dye vats not as inanimate objects, but as living, breathing beings. They claimed the vats whispered secrets on the wind, that they breathed with a slow, steady rhythm, and could even grow angry and uncooperative if they were neglected or treated with disrespect. This belief transformed the women who tended them. They weren't merely artisans or craftswomen. They were priestesses, keepers of a sacred covenant between the earth and the water, between the living and the ancestors. To spoil a vat, to let the delicate chemical balance fail, wasn't just a costly mistake, was seen as an offense to the ancestors, a breaking of a sacred trust. As the indigo leaves began to ferment in the vats, a distinct aroma would fill the air. It was a complex scent, a mixture of sweet and sour, earthy and almost floral. It was a smell that clung to everything, to the skin and hair of the dyers, to the walls of their homes, and to the very memory of the place. This wasn't just an industrial byproduct. It was the perfume of the Hausa city-state's burgeoning wealth. It was this exact scent that traders carried on their clothes and with their goods as they journeyed along the Trans-Saharan routes. It drifted north to the markets of Fezzan and Tripoli, east towards the shores of Lake Chad, and west to the legendary city of Timbuktu. The smell of indigo was the smell of prosperity. But the evidence of this craft was more than just a scent on the wind. The indigo stain wasn't confined to fabric. It was a permanent mark on the hands, the nails, and sometimes even the lips of the women who worked the vats. There was a common saying, spoken with a laugh and a sense of pride, that even in death, a dyer's palms could never turn pale again. Their hands, stained a deep, brilliant blue, became their badge of honor. It was an undeniable, indelible sign that they were masters of a powerful transformation, capable of turning simple green leaves into a piece of the night sky, transforming nature into breathtaking art. The desert environment, so harsh in many ways, seemed to favor this particular art form. The dry, relentless wind that swept across the savannah was perfect for quickening the drying process of the dyed cloth. The fierce, unfiltered sun didn't fade the color. Instead, it acted as a mordant, sealing the indigo deep into the cotton fibers until the fabric gleamed with a life of its own, shimmering like the horizon at dusk. When you held a piece of this cloth, each fold and crease seemed to catch the light, making it look as if it were breathing. Let's pause here for a moment. Close your eyes. Imagine the fire crackling softly beside us. We're resting beneath a vast canopy of stars. The air is cool and clean. We can smell the wood smoke from our campfire and carried on the gentle night breeze. There's another scent, faint but unmistakable, the ghost of indigo, a whisper from the past. The process itself was a marvel of organic chemistry, perfected through generations of trial and error. The women would begin by pounding fresh or dried indigo leaves into a pulp. This pulp was then molded into balls and left to dry in the sun. Once dried, these balls were broken up and placed into the dyeing pit, which was already filled with water. The key ingredient came next, ash. Not just any ash, but a carefully prepared lye solution made from the ashes of specific plants. Often the asterisk, Kenya asterisk, or African locust bean tree pods. This ash solution was alkaline, and it was crucial for creating the right chemical environment for the dye to be released from the leaves. The mixture was then left to ferment for several days, sometimes up to a week. Throughout this time, the women would stir the vat regularly with long wooden poles. This was a physically demanding job, but it was essential for ensuring an even fermentation. As they stirred, a coppery, iridescent film would form on the surface, a sign that the chemical reaction was proceeding correctly. This was the moment of transformation. The insoluble indigo in the leaves was being converted into a soluble, yellowish-green form known as white indigo or leuco-indigo. Once the vat was ready, the dyeing could begin. A piece of white cotton cloth would be submerged into the murky, yellowish-green liquid. It was a moment that felt like magic. When the cloth was pulled out, it would initially be a pale, ghostly green. But as it met the air, as the oxygen in the atmosphere reacted with the leuco-indigo, the color would begin to change. Before your very eyes, the fabric would transform, shifting from green to turquoise, and finally deepening into that rich, profound blue. It was alchemy in action. For the deepest, most prized shades of blue-black, the cloth would be dipped and aired multiple times, a process that could take days. Each dip added another layer of color, another layer of depth. Between dips, the cloth would be laid out to dry, and sometimes it was beaten with wooden mallets. This beating process, known as calendering, served to compress the fibers and give the finished cloth a beautiful, glossy sheen, making it even more valuable. The patterns we see on many of these historic textiles were not an afterthought. They were part of the dyeing process itself. Using techniques known as resist dyeing, artisans would prevent the dye from reaching certain parts of the cloth. One popular method involved tying the fabric tightly with raffia palm fibers before dyeing. The areas constricted by the raffia would remain white, creating intricate, circular or linear patterns. Another method involved stitching patterns into the cloth with thread, which would be unpicked after dyeing to reveal the design. Sometimes, a starch paste made from cassava or rice would be painted onto the fabric. The paste would resist the dye, and once it was washed off, it left behind a negative image of the design. These techniques, known as a dyer, required incredible precision and a strong artistic vision. The dyer had to imagine the final pattern in reverse, a testament to their skill and foresight. This entire process was a community affair. While the women were the masters of the dye pits, men were often involved in other stages. They might be the ones who traveled to gather the specific plants needed for the ash solution. Or they might be the weavers who produced the plain white cotton cloth, the blank canvas for the dyer's art. The traders, predominantly men, would then take the finished, vibrant textiles and carry them across the continent, spreading the fame of Kano's blue cloth far and wide. So, when we look at a piece of this indigo-dyed fabric, we're not just looking at a beautiful object, we're looking at a physical manifestation of an entire ecosystem of knowledge, community, and trade. It tells a story of women who were chemists, artists, and business leaders. It speaks of a deep connection to the natural world, an understanding of plants and minerals that was passed down not in books, but through hands-on practice. It's a story of how a simple leaf, through human ingenuity and patience, could create a color that defined a culture and built an empire. The blue of Kano was more than a dye. It was the lifeblood of a people, a liquid currency that flowed out into the world. In the world of ancient dyeing, no cloth took color without spirit. This was especially true for indigo. Above all, indigo demanded respect, for it was believed to carry a living essence within its deep, mysterious heart. Imagine this scene. Before a woman would even think of dipping her precious fabric into the vat, she would stand in silence, a moment of profound connection. She'd whisper words learned from her grandmother, a soft, almost prayer-like incantation. May the vat accept. May the cloth remember. These weren't just empty phrases. They were a bridge between the physical and the metaphysical, a plea to the spirit of the dye. The rituals were beautifully varied. Some women would drop a few grains of millet into the pit, a humble offering of sustenance. Others might sprinkle water from a calabash, a symbolic gesture to quench the thirst of the spirit dwelling below. These small, deliberate acts were not about superstition. They were about acknowledgement, about feeding the life force that they believed was essential for the transformation to occur. It was a partnership. The dyer brought the cloth and the skill, but the indigo spirit brought the magic. Without this mutual respect, the cloth would remain lifeless, untouched by the vibrant blue they sought. The entire process was steeped in a deep understanding that they were not merely coloring fabric. They were communing with an ancient, powerful entity. It was widely believed that the indigo vats had moods, just like people. You couldn't just approach them on your own terms. You had to read the signs. When the bubbles on the surface rose angrily, frothing and turbulent, it was a clear signal to leave them alone. To disturb the vat in this state was to invite failure, to disrespect its agitation. But when the surface gleamed calm, dark, and clear, like a polished obsidian mirror, it was an invitation to work. It was a sign that the spirit was at peace and ready to receive the cloth. A dying or sick vat was a source of great concern for the entire community. It was seen as a reflection of a failure in ritual or a disruption in social harmony. Perhaps there had been an argument nearby, its negative energy seeping into the ground. Perhaps an offering had been forgotten, a sign of disrespect. The health of the dye pit was inextricably linked to the well-being of the people. To remedy this, the women would often sing while they stirred the vats. Their voices would rise together in beautiful, soothing harmonies, like a gentle spell meant to calm the troubled spirit and restore balance. This collective song was more than just a work chant. It was a communal act of healing, a way to mend the spiritual fabric of their world so that the physical fabric could receive its color. Imagine the dye yard at night, bathed in the soft, ethereal glow of the moon. The day's work is done, and the freshly dyed cloths are laid out to dry on long wooden poles. In the dim light, they appear pale, almost ghostly green or yellow. The deep, rich blue we associate with indigo has not yet emerged. It's a moment of quiet anticipation, a liminal space between what was and what will be. The real magic, the final transformation, happens not in the vat, but in the air. As the morning light returns, a slow, wondrous change begins. The air itself, the oxygen, works its own magic on the cloth. To watch this transformation is to witness a kind of rebirth. Color appears where none had been just hours before. The invisible breath of the world turns into a visible, tangible beauty. It's a silent, breathtaking process, as if the fabric is inhaling the sky. This magical moment reinforces the belief that the dyer is merely a facilitator. They prepare the cloth, they make the offerings, but the final, glorious act of creation is a gift from the elements, a dance between the spirit of the dye and the spirit of the air itself. It is a powerful reminder that some of the most beautiful things in life are born from patience and trust in unseen forces. A good dyer, they said, possessed a sense of knowing that went far beyond technical skill. She could feel in her very bones when the cloth was ready. She didn't need a clock to time the immersion or a chart to count the minutes. Her body remembered. Generations of knowledge were stored not in books, but in her muscle memory, in the feeling of the fabric between her fingers. They spoke of a tingling sensation in her hands when the spirit of the indigo was satisfied, a subtle, physical signal that the transaction was complete and the cloth had received all the color it could hold. This connection was deeply personal and intuitive. It was a language without words, a deep listening to the materials. This intuitive sense separated the master dyer from the novice. It was a testament to a life lived in close harmony with the natural and spiritual worlds, where the lines between self and work, between human and nature, became beautifully blurred. Her hands were not just tools, they were conduits for a sacred process, feeling the pulse of the dye and the readiness of the cloth. The dyer's emotional state was believed to be woven directly into the fabric. The dye pits were seen as small worlds of balance, incredibly sensitive to the energy around them. Some cloths, if dyed while the dyer was feeling angry or resentful, would come out blotched and uneven. People would say they were cursed, that the negative emotion had poisoned the process, leaving a permanent stain. The anger became a visible flaw, a testament to the discord present during its creation. On the other hand, cloths that were dyed with a heart full of gratitude and a mind in a state of calm seemed to glow from within. Their blue was deeper, more vibrant, and more even. It was as if the positive energy had been absorbed along with the pigment, making the fabric itself a vessel of peace and beauty. In this world, chemistry and prayer were not separate disciplines. Science and spirit were so tightly intertwined that you simply could not tell where one ended and the other began. The process of making color was also the process of making meaning, of embedding human experience into every single thread. The finished cloth wasn't just an object. It was a story, a feeling, a prayer made visible. Let's pause here for a moment. As we imagine this scene, the night air begins to cool. The fire, which had been burning brightly, now fades to soft, glowing amber. And in the profound quiet of the sleeping village, a single woman's song drifts over the indigo yard. It's a soft, eternal melody, a lullaby for the cloth as it undergoes its final transformation under the stars. It's a sound that carries the wisdom of generations, a testament to the enduring, beautiful relationship between humanity and the mysterious spirit of indigo. As word of the blue cloth spread, so too did the fame of its makers. Imagine this: caravans, long and patient, winding their way through the endless dunes of the Sahara. The camels, laden with folded bolts of deep, rich blue cloth, move with a rhythmic grace, and following them, like an invisible banner, is the unmistakable, earthy smell of fermented indigo leaves. It's a scent that announces their arrival long before the first camel is spotted on the horizon. This wasn't just trade. It was a procession of artistry, a moving river of color flowing out from the heart of Hausaland. The Hausa merchants were, without a doubt, among Africa's earliest and most successful exporters of beauty. Their magnificent cloths traveled far and wide. They reached the Tuareg, those enigmatic, veiled riders of the Sahara, whose flowing robes would catch the wind, turning the very air around them a shade of ethereal blue. The Tuareg didn't just wear the color, they became one with it, their skin absorbing the indigo until they were known as the Blue Men of the Desert. Their identity was woven into the very fabric they wore. From the Sahara, the journey of indigo continued. It traveled onward to the remote salt oases of Bilma, a critical stop on the trans-Saharan trade routes. It graced the opulent courts of the Songhai Empire in Gao, where royalty adorned themselves in its deep royal hues. And it even made its way to the bustling, labyrinthine markets of Cairo. Their merchants from Venice, from the Ottoman Empire, from lands far-flung, they seemed like myths, would stop and marvel. They'd run their fingers over the fabric, holding it up to the light, astonished at how a simple color could feel so alive, how it could seem to breathe with a life of its own. This wasn't just cloth. Indigo was currency. It was a symbol of status. And in many ways, it was a kind of spell, a form of magic. Chiefs and emirs demanded it as tribute from their vassals, a clear display of their power and influence. The wealthiest homes were filled with chests of indigo-dyed fabrics. Traders, when counting their wealth, would handle the folded bolts of indigo with the same care and reverence as they would bags of gold dust or precious salt. The value was comparable. Think about that. A single, beautifully dyed robe could be traded for a strong camel, the very vehicle needed to cross the vast desert. It could pay for safe passage, for food and water on a journey that spanned thousands of miles. There was a saying, a piece of traveler's wisdom passed down through generations. Follow the trail of indigo, and you will never lose your way to Kano. The trade was so constant, so established, that the path was marked by the color itself, in the caravans that carried it, in the people who wore it, in the stories told in the oases along the way. Kano was the epicenter, the heart from which this blue lifeblood pumped outwards, connecting distant corners of the continent. But to see indigo merely as wealth is to miss its deepest meaning. More than gold, more than camels, the dye carried identity. To wear Hausa blue was to make a silent, powerful declaration. It was to say, I belong to a civilization of patience. It was a statement of cultural pride. It signified that you were part of a people who understood a profound truth, that true, lasting beauty takes time. It cannot be rushed. It must be cultivated. No one hurried the indigo. The process itself was a lesson in patience. The dye demanded waiting, a deep understanding of natural rhythms. The dyers had to trust the fermentation to know by smell and sight when the mixture was ready. The cloth was dipped, then aired, then dipped again. Each layer added a new depth, a new dimension to the color. The blue only deepened with faith in the process. Faith in the materials and faith in the ancestral knowledge passed down through generations. It was a collaboration between the dyer, the plant, and time itself. This reverence for the process permeated the culture. In Hausa poetry and proverbs, a wise and respected person was often called my shuni, literally, the one of the indigo. This wasn't because they were a dyer. It was a metaphor. It meant that their wisdom, like the color, was deep, enduring, and possessed a profound calmness. Just as indigo is not a loud or flashy color, true wisdom doesn't need to shout. It is quiet, confident, and profound. Indigo became a metaphor for the soul itself. Think of the dye vat. It's dark, murky, almost black. But from that darkness emerges this luminous, breathtaking blue. It represented something that was at once dark yet radiant, humble in its origins yet infinite in its beauty. It was a reflection of the human spirit complex, deep and capable of producing incredible beauty from humble beginnings. This wasn't just a craft. It was a philosophy, woven into every thread. And the most incredible part, this story isn't just a relic of the past. Even today, if you travel to northern Nigeria, you can walk through the ancient dye pits of Kano. Some of these pits have been in continuous use for centuries. The air still hums with the quiet, rhythmic work of the dyers. The scent of indigo still hangs heavy and sweet. Women, descendants of those first masters, still dip, wring, lift, and lay the cloth to dry beneath the same vast, unbroken African sky. You can watch as they pull a cloth from the vat. At first, it's a pale, yellowish green. But as the oxygen of the air hits it, a miracle unfolds before your eyes. The color magically transforms, deepening into that iconic, soul-stirring blue. And when you see that first gleam of blue staining their fingers, their hands turns eyeing the legacy of their ancestors, you realize a profound truth. Some colors are eternal, not because they resist fading. All colors fade with the sun and with time. No, they are eternal because they live in memory, in practice, and in the hands of the people who continue to bring them to life. The color lives because the story is still being told. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire is low, the desert wind sighs outside, and the storyteller's voice slows. We've journeyed far, following a thread of color across sand and time. We have reached the color of stillness, the hue of forever. Step into the heart of a Hausa palace, and the first thing you notice isn't the grandeur of the architecture, but the sound. Listen closely. It's a symphony unlike any other, a royal orchestra that never ceases its performance. It's the soft, whispering sweep of a hand-woven robe brushing against cool marble floors. It's the gentle hum of weavers at their looms as dawn breaks, their shuttles flying back and forth in a tireless dance. It's the rhythmic splash and gurgle from the indigo vats, where cloth is baptized in deep, rich blue. In the historical courts of Kano, Katsina, and Zatsu, this soundscape was the very pulse of power. Here, cloth was never just about beauty or adornment. It was the visible breath of kingship, a tangible expression of authority and tradition. The palace loom was a sacred instrument, and it was rarely silent for long. Each thread pulled taut was like a royal decree being issued. Each intricate fold in the finished fabric a solemn promise made to the people. When a new emir ascended the throne, he wasn't just given a crown or a scepter. He was enveloped, wrapped in layers of exquisite cloth that symbolized the loyalty and devotion of every hand that had touched it, from the spinner who created the thread to the dyer who gave it color to the tailor who stitched it into its final form. A single, magnificent robe, the Riga asterisk, was a monumental undertaking. It could take months, sometimes even a year, to complete. Woven in layers of cotton or silk, its colors were designed to shimmer and transform, catching the light differently under the golden morning sun and the silvery glow of the moon. This wasn't just clothing, it was a living chronicle of the kingdom. The weavers chosen to create these masterpieces were not ordinary artisans. They were masters of their craft, individuals who had inherited not just skill passed down through generations, but a profound sense of discipline and purpose. Their studios were hushed places of intense focus. Their work demanded a level of patience that seems almost superhuman. Endless hours spent spinning the perfect, unbroken thread. Days spent meticulously aligning patterns so precise and complex they looked as though they were drawn. From the celestial maps of the night sky, the tailors, too, were part of this elite circle. They were known by name in the court records, their families having served the palace for generations. In their hands, a pair of scissors was not a mere tool. It was regarded with a reverence akin to the emir's ceremonial sword. Each cut was deliberate, each stitch a mark of their devotion to the throne. In the royal dye pits, a world of deep, mesmerizing color came to life. It was often the women who presided over these vats, stirring the bubbling pools of indigo that were so dark and concentrated they looked like liquid night. The indigo itself was a precious commodity, a testament to the kingdom's reach and influence. It was often imported from distant lands along ancient trade routes, its supply guarded as fiercely as the royal treasury's gold. The moment a garment emerged from the dye steaming, heavy and saturated with that unmistakable, brilliant blue, was a moment of celebration. A ripple of excitement would spread through the palace. A freshly dyed robe for the emir was more than just a new piece of his wardrobe. It signified the continuity of order, the strength of the kingdom, and the renewal of royal dignity. It was a visual affirmation that all was well. Every festival, every public procession, transformed the palace grounds and city streets into a dazzling parade of woven power. As musicians beat out powerful rhythms on their drums and dancers spun in joyful circles, the robes of the court officials and nobility would flutter and flow like a great, colorful ocean wave. The cloth itself told stories, acting as a visual language that everyone understood. A glance at a man's robe could tell you his lineage, whether he was born of noble blood or had earned his position through merit. The quality and color of the fabric could signify who carried divine favor, and the complexity of the embroidery could indicate who stood closest to the throne, their proximity to power woven into the very fabric they wore. A seemingly simple robe could carry a multitude of meanings and names. A single style might be known as the *Riga Madaki*, the *Riga Saruta*, or the *Riga Malamai*, with each name representing a specific office, a different social rank, or its use in a particular ritual. The patterns themselves were a rich vocabulary of symbols and beliefs. The interlocking diamonds, a classic feature of Hausa embroidery, were not just a decorative element. They were visual prayers for a long and prosperous reign. The parallel lines, stitched along the sleeves and down the front of the robe, were meant to mirror the straight and true paths of destiny, guiding the wearer with wisdom and integrity. Through these magnificent garments, The kings and emirs of the Hausa states constantly reminded their people that rule was not just a matter of spoken words and commands. It was something that was worn, displayed, and embodied, a beautiful and powerful testament to a civilization that understood the art of weaving power into every thread. This tradition of sartorial splendor was a form of public communication, a way for the ruler to project his status and the stability of his government without uttering a single word. When the emir appeared in public, draped in his finest regalia, he was a living symbol of the state's wealth, spiritual health, and political strength. The sheer volume of cloth, the richness of the dyes, and the intricacy of the embroidery all served to overwhelm the senses and inspire awe and respect in those who witnessed it. The weight of the robe itself, often consisting of many layers, compelled the wearer to move with a slow, deliberate grace, further enhancing the aura of majesty and unshakable authority. It was a performance of power, and the costume was as important as the actor. The creation of these garments also fostered a complex economic and social ecosystem. It provided livelihoods for thousands, from the cotton farmers in the fields to the spinners, weavers, dyers, and tailors in the towns and cities. The royal court was the primary patron of the highest quality textiles, and this demand drove innovation and excellence in the craft. Guilds of artisans flourished, and their specialized knowledge was a source of immense pride and social standing. To be a weaver for the emir was to be recognized as a master, a keeper of a sacred tradition. This patronage system ensured that the skills were not only preserved, but were constantly refined and elevated, creating a legacy of textile artistry that is still admired today. The cloth connected the ruler to his people in a very tangible way. His power provided their prosperity, and their skill adorned his power. Even today, echoes of this grand tradition persist. While the context has changed, the visual language of Hausa textile arts continues to be a powerful marker of identity and prestige. The Grand Bubu, a modern descendant of the classic *Riga*, is worn with pride at weddings, religious festivals, and important social gatherings across West Africa and beyond. The intricate embroidery, the flowing silhouettes, and the vibrant colors still speak of a rich cultural heritage. They are a nod to a time when cloth was a chronicle, a constitution, and a covenant between a ruler and his people. Looking at these garments, you can almost hear the faint, rhythmic sounds of the palace loom. A reminder that true power is not just seized, but is carefully, patiently, and beautifully woven. Hello, and welcome back to our journey through the vibrant history of textiles. In our last segment, we saw how the art of dyeing became a symbol of royal power within the palace walls. But the influence of these colors, these magnificent fabrics, didn't stop at the palace gates. It spilled out, flooding the marketplaces and transforming the very fabric of society itself. Imagine stepping into the ancient city of Kano. Beyond the grand palace, the marketplace thrummed with a life all its own, an echo of the power we just witnessed. The famous Kano dye pits, legendary for their deep, rich indigo, smoked like dozens of small, bustling volcanoes dotting the landscape. The air wasn't just filled with the scent of dye. It was a symphony of commerce. You'd hear the rhythmic slap of freshly dyed cloth being rinsed in water, the low, intense murmur of traders from across the Sahel haggling over prices. Their words a dance of numbers and promises. And above it all, the bright, clear laughter of women as they expertly balanced massive, rolled bales of colorful fabric on their heads, navigating the crowded lanes with a grace that defied the weight they carried. Every single yard of cloth in that market wasn't just a commodity. It held a story, a history of skilled hands and long journeys. And, of course, it carried a price. In this world, wealth wasn't just tallied in gold coins or heads of cattle. True prosperity was measured in something far more tangible and beautiful: the softness of a fabric against your skin, the breathtaking depth of its hue. Cloth was currency. It was a universally understood measure of value. Think about it. A single, masterfully crafted roll of fine *Barcono *dyed cotton, famous for its reddish-brown color, could be traded for a strong horse to cross the desert, for the bride price to start a new family, or even for a fertile plot of land to build a future on. This wasn't disposable fashion. This was generational wealth. The most prized bolts, those with the most intricate patterns and deepest colors, were folded with immense care, stored in ornate chests, and passed down from parent to child. They were, in every sense of the word, a textile treasury, an inheritance woven from skill, artistry, and economic power. This economic importance wasn't a local phenomenon. It was the engine of international trade. During the golden centuries of the trans-Saharan trade routes, a vast network connecting West Africa to the Mediterranean and beyond, Hausa cities became essential hubs. Imagine the scene: massive caravans, sometimes thousands of camels strong, emerging from the sands after weeks of travel. They arrived from powerful empires like Bornu and Songhai, their camels laden with precious bars of salt, a vital commodity, and gleaming brass goods. But they didn't leave empty-handed. Their return journey saw them loaded with the treasures of the houseland, expertly tanned leather goods, and most importantly, mountains of textiles. Cities like Kano and Cartagena rose to prominence, becoming the undisputed textile capitals of the entire Sahel region. They were more than just cities. They were epicenters of craft, commerce, and culture. Here, color wasn't just for decoration. Color itself became a language, a sophisticated vocabulary of wealth, status, and identity. A person as standing could be understood simply by observing the quality and color of the cloth they wore. The deepest indigo might signify old money and influence, while a vibrant, imported dye could signal a newly wealthy merchant with connections to distant lands. The market was a living dictionary of this visual language. And who were the masters of this language? Who dictated the trends and controlled the flow of this incredible wealth? In the seeming chaos of the marketplace, it was the women who ruled, often quietly, but with indisputable authority. They were the brokers, the master merchants, the ultimate tastemakers. They were the ones who truly set the rhythm of supply and demand. You would see them moving between the stalls, wrapped in layers of their finest wrappers and elegant headscarves, their posture radiating a confidence that rivaled any queen's. They moved with the authority of deep knowledge, their eyes assessing the quality of a weave with a single glance, their fingers testing the texture of a fabric to discern its origin and value. It was these women who decided which new dye shades would capture the public's imagination and dominate the season. They knew which patterns, whether geometric or abstract, would rise in favor among the wealthy elite, and they placed their orders accordingly, driving the entire production chain. Their collective taste shaped the aesthetic of a generation. For many of these women, trading in cloth was more than just a business. It was a pathway to freedom, to autonomy in a world that often sought to limit it. A woman who controlled her own trade was a woman who controlled her own destiny. The profits she earned weren't just pocket money. They were the foundation of her independence. With her own wealth, she could own her own home, contribute significantly to her family's well-being, and, crucially, earn her a voice in public councils and community decisions. Her economic power translated directly into social and political influence. Through the bustling commerce of the marketplace, textiles became the bridge connecting the rarefied luxury of the palace with the everyday life, hopes and ambitions of the common people. This deep connection between textiles and life's journey was woven into the very aspirations of the community. For a young man, a key goal in life was to earn enough to gift his future bride a full set of ceremonial cloths. This wasn't just a wedding present. It was a testament to his ability to provide and a symbol of the new life they were building together. This set of cloths would accompany them through every major life event. There would be a specific, beautiful cloth for the wedding ceremony itself, another for the joyous naming ceremony of their first child, and even a final, respectful cloth for burial when their time on earth came to an end. Every significant moment of life, from birth to marriage to death, was wrapped quite literally in woven meaning and tradition. The cloth was a silent witness, a constant companion on life's journey. And so, as dusk began to settle over the city, a quiet would descend upon the marketplace. The vibrant energy would slowly dissipate. The dye pits, which had bubbled and steamed all day, would begin to cool, their fires banked for the night. The haggling voices would fade, replaced by the sounds of merchants packing away their precious wares. But even in the quiet of the evening, one thing lingered. The distinct, earthy, and slightly sweet scent of indigo hung in the air. A persistent perfume of a day's work done well, a fragrant reminder of the city's wealth, its art, and its soul. This story of cloth is a powerful reminder that history is not just about kings and battles, it's also about the things we create, the things we trade, and the meanings we weave into them. The textile trade of the Hausa states was a testament to incredible artistry, economic savvy, and the enduring power of women to shape their own destinies. Hello everyone, and welcome back. In our last journey together, we were wrapped in the opulent folds of Royal Hausa textiles, where every thread was spun with power and every color told a story of empire. But what happens when the king leaves his throne? When the palace gates close and the dust of history settles? Does the loom fall silent? For the Hausa people, the answer is a resounding no. The story of their weaving did not end with the kings. In fact, that's where a new, even more resilient chapter begins. Even as empires rose and fell across the Sahel, as trade routes shifted and new powers emerged, one thing endured: the quiet, rhythmic patience of the weaver. It's a sound, a feeling, a legacy that has been whispered across generations, from grandmother to granddaughter, from father to son. Today, if you listen closely in the bustling heart of modern Nigeria, you can still hear it. Beneath the electric buzz of city life, underneath the roar of traffic and the vibrant pulse of commerce, the old rhythm of the loom beats on Bajan. This, a modern tailor-s shop in the ancient city of Kaduna, or the historic capital of Sokoto. The sun has set, and the space is bathed in the soft, warm glow of an electric light. On the wall, faded photographs of ancestors watch over the room, men and women in their own hand-woven garments, their faces etched with the same dedication we see in the young tailor before us. His hands, guided by an ancient muscle memory, move with a practiced grace. He might be using a modern sewing machine, its hum a steady counterpoint to the city's sounds. But the essence of his work remains unchanged. Every magnificent agbada he stitches, every flowing robe that takes shape under his skilled fingers, is a direct descendant of the royal garments once worn in the grand courts of Kano and Zaria. Look closer at the intricate embroidery he adds to a neckline. That pattern isn't just a design, it's an echo of centuries. It carries the steady, unwavering pulse of a tradition that refuses to fade away, a cultural heartbeat that has grown stronger, not weaker, with time. This continuity isn't just found in professional workshops. It lives in the courtyards of family homes, under the shade of mango trees. It's in the image of a grandfather, his hands weathered by time, patiently explaining the meaning of a particular pattern to his curious son. He points to the intersecting lines, telling him this one represents the crossroads of life, a choice you must make with wisdom. He traces a spiral, saying, this is the journey inward, to know yourself before you know the world. This is not a formal lesson. It's a transmission of identity, a passing of a sacred torch. And it's in the quiet whispers between mothers and daughters as they work. A mother might guide her daughter's hands on the loom, her voice soft but firm, sharing the wisdom passed down to her. Do not rush the thread, she say. Let your patience breathe between each pull. The cloth knows when you are hurried. It will show your frustrations. But if you give it your peace, it will give you its beauty. This is more than just learning a craft. It is learning a way of being. It's an education in patience, in mindfulness, and in the understanding that true value is built slowly, deliberately, and with love. What we are witnessing here is something profound. This is more than craft. It is continuity. To weave is to remember. To stitch a garment is to make a powerful declaration that culture cannot die. It can only change its form, adapting and evolving like a living thing. The Hausa have a proverb that captures this spirit perfectly. Zainba Yamutua, Sai Daya Kanzaloni. It means, cloth never dies. It only changes color. And so it is with the spirit of the people themselves. Their identity is not a static monument frozen in the past. It is a loom, constantly spinning, weaving new experiences, new technologies, and new ideas into its fabric, without ever losing the essential pattern. The loom of identity keeps turning, quietly, endlessly, creating a textile of culture that is both ancient and brand new. Think about the incredible journey this art form has taken. From the exclusive, opulent palaces of sultans, it has traveled to the humble, bustling roadside tailor shops that line the streets of every Nigerian city. From the deep, earthy indigo pits where weavers dyed their threads under the hot sun, it has now found its way onto international fashion runways, admired by a global audience. The journey of Hausa textiles is not just about the fabric itself. It's about the art of becoming visible. It's about the transformation of an internal, invisible quality patience into something the entire world can see, touch, and admire. You can feel this story all around you. It's in the soft, hypnotic hum of a loom in a village compound, a sound that has been the backdrop of life for 1,000 years. It's in the joyful, uninhibited laughter of a dyer as she pulls a cloth from the dye pot, revealing a brilliant, stunning new color. It's in the subtle gleam of a silk-embroidered agbada sleeve as it catches the light at a wedding celebration. A single moment of beauty that connects the wearer to a long line of ancestors. In all these moments, the story continues. The thread of Hausa culture stretches across time, unbroken, shimmering with a unique blend of past glory and present gentleness. Because, you see, to weave, for the Hausa, was never simply about making cloth. It was, and still is, about weaving life itself. It's about taking the disparate threads of joy and sorrow, of work and celebration, of history and future, and binding them together into a coherent, beautiful whole. It's about understanding that a meaningful life, like a beautiful piece of fabric, is built one patient, deliberate, beautiful thread at a time. And so, as we conclude our exploration, the grand looms of the royal courts finally fall silent in our story. The echoes of the past, the weight of the royal robes, the vibrant songs of the market, they fade into a respectful quiet. But the loom's spirit, its true essence, is not gone. It hasn't vanished. It has simply transformed. Its echo lives on. It lives in the steady hum of the modern tailor's sewing machine late at night. It lives in the timeless wisdom of a mother's proverb, whispered into her child's ear. It lives in the shimmer of cloth that, to this day, still carries the immense power of history, the deep warmth of love, and the sacred weight of memory. The cloth never died. It only changed its color, becoming more vibrant and more resilient than ever before. The dust settles. The looms fall quiet. In the hush that follows, even the night seems to breathe slower, as if listening for one last thread to be tied. What remains is not sound or motion, but memory. The memory of hand, steady, patient, unhurried drawing beauty out of the ordinary. Hands that learned rhythm from the wind and endurance from the earth. Hands that could turn something as fragile as cotton into something as lasting as a legacy. Somewhere, a weaver sits before a silent loom, his palms resting where once there was constant movement. He has seen generations come and go, markets rise and fade, kings crowned and forgotten. Yet, in his stillness, he carries the pulse of all who came before him, pulse that beats not in sound, but in patience. There is a sacred rhythm in patience. A weaver knows this truth better than most. Each thread must be pulled with care, each mistake undone with humility. He does not rush time, for he knows that time itself is the loom, and life, with all its tangled beginnings and frayed endings, is only beautiful when woven slowly. The loom teaches endurance. It teaches that beauty is not loud, nor urgent, nor proud, it is consistent. It comes from repetition, from quiet dedication to an unseen goal. The same rhythm that built a single robe in Kano centuries ago is the rhythm that built cities, that raised families, that carried empires through storms. As dusk deepens over the Hausa plains, the world is wrapped in the same stillness that once filled the weaver's workshop. The air smells faintly of dust, dye, and smoke, the holy trinity of creation. And if you listen long enough, you might still hear the whisper of thread through fingers, the sigh of cloth folding onto itself like a tired bird finding rest. For even when the loom is silent, the hands remember. They remember how to make meaning from labor, how to turn struggle into art. They remember that each fiber is part of something larger, something meant to cover, to comfort, to endure. Every woven piece is a small defiance against forgetfulness, because cloth, like history, carries touched fingerprints of those who refused to let their world unravel. It carries the faint scent of the dyer's laughter, the quiet pride of a mother teaching her daughter the weave, the hope of a young tailor threading a needle under a flickering bulb. And so the story never ends. The thread unwinds, but it does not break. It finds new patterns, new wearers, new meanings. It turns from royal robes to wedding gowns, from market wraps to festival flags. The spirit of the loom walks beside every piece of cloth, invisible, eternal. The hoofprints fade, the threads unwind, but the spirit remains woven in patience, dyed in memory, glowing beneath the stars. And as night settles gently across the land, the folded cloth near the fire catches the last breath of wind shimmering once more before sleep. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. If this story touched you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing these histories. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. You are now under Baobab skies.